Now, one factor is that our cash rate is already at 5.5%. Australia's only at 4.1%. The US and the UK both sitting at around about 5%. So we've already got an interest rate which is relatively high compared with these other places overseas. Hello again, everybody. If you have a look at what's happening in the financial markets overseas, discussions about monetary policy and inflation in other countries, you might be starting to get a little bit worried about what's going to be happening in New Zealand with regard to interest rates. Now, about a month ago, our central bank, the Reserve Bank, made it fairly clear when they increased the official cash rate 0.25% to 5.5% that that's as high as they feel things need to go in New Zealand. But if you look overseas, all the discussion is about interest rates having to go up further, maybe 1-2 times seems to be the common pick in the likes of the United Kingdom, Australia and the United States in particular. Because of those expectations in the United States particularly, we've seen some extra upward pressure on some of the medium to long-term borrowing costs in New Zealand, which are quite heavily influenced by what people expect to happen with monetary policy in the United States. But before one gets a bit pessimistic about further monetary policy tightening in New Zealand, there are a number of things to keep in mind that suggest to me it's pretty unlikely we will see our Reserve Bank feeling that they need to apply extra restraint to the New Zealand economy in order to get inflation down. Now, one factor is that our cash rate is already at 5.5%. Australia's only at 4.1%. The US and the UK both sitting at around about 5%. So we've already got an interest rate which is relatively high compared with these other places overseas. So a lot of restraint essentially is already in place. Secondly, we're already technically in recession in New Zealand, or at least we had a technical recession. Now, personally, I don't think it's the be-all and end-all. We don't have the unemployment rate going up as yet, for instance, but hey, what the heck? This is the sort of thing that central banks pay close attention to. And when we got the data the other day showing our economy shrank by 0.1% in the March quarter, we've got to remember the Reserve Bank had previously estimated that we actually grew by 0.3%. So that makes 2 quarters in a row where they have quite a bit overestimated what the economy was doing. So that's definitely going to make them cautious and want to avoid the risk that they tighten unnecessarily too much and cause too much pain out there. Another thing to keep in mind is that there's still about $150 billion worth of fixed rate mortgages in New Zealand that have yet to reset their fixed rate from maybe on average around about 3.5% towards something like perhaps 6.5% over the next 12 months. So there is actually still a lot of restraint to come along for the New Zealand economy. And like I say, we can see that in the New Zealand economy, some points of weakness here and there, definitely with regard to consumer spending. The key one that we're all looking at, however, is the labour market, and we don't yet have definitive data in hand to fully say this, but we can see from some of the smaller indicators that wage pressures do appear to be easing off, that there are slightly fewer job advertisements being placed out there, and of course some assistance is being made to the availability of labour from the boom in net migration inflows. So employers are just finding a few more staff available. So overall, I don't think we have to worry too much about the Reserve Bank tightening monetary policy again. Now, just quickly, I mentioned there about the migration boom underway. For your guide, in Australia, the rule of thumb is that an extra 100,000 people added to their economy from migration flows boosts their house prices by about 1%. There's an expectation this year of a net migration gain for Australia of about 400,000 people, so extra upward pressure on prices of about 4%, and certainly the housing market is moving up in Australia. In New Zealand, we've got about 1/5 of the population, so if the same equation holds, then a net gain of just under 20,000 people in New Zealand would add 1% upward pressure on prices. So far, we've got a net gain of 72,000 in the year to April, so maybe roughly also there's an extra 4% to be added to New Zealand house prices as a result of the migration gains so far. So just something else to think about. All the best out there.